Most of the rest of you know who I am. My name is Craig Ernst. I work for the Oregon Solar and Storage Industries Association. We are the only nonprofit in the state of Oregon that works exclusively on the solar and storage value chain. And we're joined today by mostly members. We put this session together in hopes to help people with their business development. This is not an advertisement for the company that Mark works for. This is not an advertisement for the company that Bill works for. But as you all know, in our industry, most of the professionals and most of the experts are already employed by different companies. So it's hard to get somebody who's just an instructor or that in referrals or whatever it is that we're teaching. So Bill has experience in small to medium-sized contractors and in construction and general construction and solar and stuff like that. So he and Mark are going to share with us today some tips and tricks to, I guess, as I was saying, to turbocharge your referral program. So thanks for being here. And I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Bill. Well, you can put Q&A in the chat. If anybody has a question, please unmute yourself. We have this set up as a meeting and not a webinar, so that it can be a little bit more interactive. And since we're getting a little bit late start, if folks want to stay with us and Bill and Mark can, then we can go a little bit over time. So apologize for any technical difficulties, but Bill, take it away.
All right, for sure. Thanks, Craig. So today, my friends, there are going to be three different sections. And the first one is, why does this matter? Why are we even talking about referrals? And then also, how to ask referrals, right? What are the nuts and bolts of actually making this thing happen? And then the third one, what do you even do? Like, let's say you're wildly successful and you get these referrals. Like, well, what do you actually do with that, right? How do you manage that? So we'll try to make this as practical as possible. And it's worth saying, I'm not going to be watching the chat, but Craig's going to be watching that. And Craig, we can save questions to the end, but I also, I would love for this to be a conversation, and I want this to be as meaningful as possible for, you guys who are taking your time to be here today. So if you have questions, I can't speak for Mark, but I'm not opposed to Craig bringing those up, or if someone wants to talk, that's okay. We can save it to the end too. But like I said, I want to make sure this is really hitting the mark for everybody. And yeah, the way to work, I'll riff a little bit, and then I'll in each of the three sections, and I'll pass it off to Mark. And we'll kind of go back and forth and really try to hit this from both the perspective of marketing and sales. Of course, Mark has such a deep depth of experience in sales, and so he'll bring some practical tips from the sales side, and I'll be talking more from marketing. But here I am, getting a little bit ahead of myself. So, my name is Bill Holzer, and I've been marketing solar and energy efficiency for about a decade. And my company is called Volta Strategies. We are a marketing partner for residential solar and energy efficiency contractors. And we're probably best known for helping our clients to grow profitably by doing more business through word of mouth instead of buying leads. And where we're going to start today is talking about this question of why. Like, why are we even talking about referrals? And I feel like, most solar installers have this sense that referrals are the best leads that you can get. And I think that's true, but what does that even mean? Well, I like coming back to the data. I'm kind of a numbers guy. So last year, throughout the pandemic, I helped my biggest client to increase their referrals and repeat business by about 40% compared to 2019. And most of what I have to say today is about how we did that, right? In practical terms, what are the step-by-step of like, how did we actually increase referrals and repeat business? But first in this section of like, why, well, what were the results? What happened? Well, the thing is that these referrals and repeat business, they closed at a rate of almost 60%. And with such a huge close rate for these new leads, we're actually able to increase the average close rate for all salespeople. It's the average close rate for all salespeople across the company by 5 percentage points throughout the pandemic in all of 2020 compared to 2019. And over that same period of time, this contractor, they completed about 13% more projects. So actually a moderate year of growth for a company that's been around for more than 10 years. And at the end of the day, all this to say that contractor just got much more efficient by taking referrals and repeat business more seriously. And this is one of the reasons that it's such a focus for me. But their customer acquisition cost, I don't know if y'all are familiar with customer acquisition costs. If you're not, some people call it CAC, but it's definitely something you should watch. And customer acquisition cost, it's the amount that you spend on marketing per project. And for this contractor I'm talking about, their customer acquisition costs dropped by 31% in 2020 compared to 2019. And let me say that one more time, right? So this contract, they spent 31% less on marketing per project while increasing completed appointments by 13%. And we did this by increasing referrals and repeat business. But also, it's worth saying that the other side of this is, you don't just have growth, have cost-effective growth like that by, increasing referrals and repeat business. But the other side of it is, you just have to get much more serious about not wasting money, right? And at least in 2020, the context is bound to be COVID-19. So I'm going to take a walk down memory lane with me and go back to the early days of the pandemic. And you might remember, the fear and the uncertainty. And what I did, facing that with this contractor is to make an inventory of like the best marketing opportunities and the worst marketing opportunities. At the bottom of the barrel, we saw, leads that were purchased online. And we found that these purchase leads, they were expensive, fewer converting. The customer acquisition costs came in at around 22%. And in other words, 22% of the revenue that we got from those projects, it went directly towards paying for the lead. It just didn't make any sense. And so for reference, the average customer acquisition cost for this contractor, it was less than 4% for all of 2020. And of course, that includes all of the money that they wasted buying leads at the beginning of the year. And so, needless to say, we stopped doing that in June 2020, haven't looked back. And of course, there's more to say, but the main takeaway in the context of like, why referrals is that I've seen it with my own eyes, right? Scaling up referrals and repeat business, it's one of the best ways that solar installers can drive, sustained, cost-effective growth, just like my client last year. But I'll pass the mic over to Mark and say, Mark, what do you say? Why do you care about referrals?
Well, again, the truth is in the numbers. Here at A&R, over 14 years, we've seen that happen where we have a target close rate of 15%. We have 12 salespeople, 8 in Washington, 4 in Oregon. And everyone's around that number for our standard opportunity round robin. But once you look at referrals, the close rate there is more than 50%. In fact, there's one of our most senior salesperson who's been with us 8 years now up in Washington. He doesn't even take raw opportunities anymore. He lives and sells over 2 million on referrals. It's insane. I shouldn't say that. He does get a few raw opportunities, but in general, he doesn't really need them, but he likes to work really hard and really long. And he's done a great job with that. What else can I say about that? It's just also a lot of fun, honestly. The way our company works is we have a lot of fun with referrals. You know what, why don't I do this? I'm going to put something in the chat. I'm going to put our web page in the chat, and everyone can take a look at that at some time. There's just, this is our public facing site. Everyone can read this just to show everyone how this works for us. Meaning we actually have a referral. We pay people for referrals. We actually pay the new customer and the referee and the referral $500 a piece for a closed project. Pretty simple. We can track it. Tracking is key with referrals. It's amazing how easily this sort of data gets lost. We use Salesforce, and our welcome team is always asking about, hey, who did you hear this from? Can we get somebody a referral for that? And they get a name, they get a phone number. Those are 2 important things, and an email, third thing. So that they're getting those 3 pieces of data that goes into Salesforce, so we can track that, so that when one closes, we can say, hey, that guy gets $500. We also make it unlimited. If there's 1 or 2 people up in Washington, especially, who are so into solar, they've gotten anywhere from 3 to 5 checks from us over the last few years, because they're out there pushing it for us. So that's the other thing. That's another extension of your marketing. That's virtually, it's not free because we are paying these referral fees, but it's $500, which is lower than our acquisition rate. So again, and they're out there doing it left and right. So,
Mark, if it works for you, man, why don't you say a little bit more about how you guys ask for referrals? And I'm thinking about the thing that we talked about before this, related to the phone calls, and I'm going to be kind of long-winded on that topic. So maybe you can
sure.
Jump in first.
We ask for it. We tell people about our program more than once. During our initial discussion, the welcome team mentions it. During my first phone call or maybe my site visit, we'll be talking about that. Once when I'm discussing who we are as a company and how we work and how we're going forward with solar. So they hit that a couple of times. In fact, I saw the one I was up with one of the salespeople up in Washington, and at the site visit, he'll take out like 5 of his business cards, and he'll talk about the referral program. He'll go, here, 500, 1,000, 1,500, $2,000 right there if you help us out. It's a little goofy, I know, but it's very effective, and it's very real. In fact, he had that customer took up a pen and wrote that down, like $500 on the guy's business card. So it's very tangible. It sits with people, and it works. But if I can back up for a minute, one of the things that makes that work for us so well is we start off selling a great project, installing a great project, and having a happy customer. That's how you get referrals. That is the bottom line. No one's going to refer you if they're not happy with the final product. They're not going to refer you if there's a problem after the sale. They're not going to refer you if something's really gone wrong. So you just have to be your best. You have to understand the market. You have to understand that AHJ. What are they going to want? What are they not going to? What will they allow? What they won't allow? There's all these, as we all know, as solar people, there's a lot of little folks out there, a lot of little AHJs out there that you've got to deal with. And you're going to find some that are more difficult than others, or you may find some that has some sort of outlier design demand that you might not have thought of. Yes, we can all get around those things, but it works best if we know it from the beginning and all of those costs are in there. I mean, as a company, we actually get dinged, salespeople, we get dinged, just a little, it's not that big of a deal, but we get dinged for change orders because we don't want those. So, there's a mindset, I worked 23 years in a different industry, in a commercial flooring industry, and there you actually like change orders because you could really mark it up, make some great money on those, which I understand because I did it. We did it all the time. And also those projects were more fluid. Most of the solar projects, you can figure it out from the get-go. And from a production side, they're like, no, we don't want any more problems. Yeah, we can make a little bit more money, but if it's a $200 change order and I just spent 4 hours on it, we're not making money. You know what I mean? So it's sort of a scale thing. So you sell it right the first time, you install it right the second time, make a customer happy. In fact, my folks tend to either call or stop by the project after it's completed, after it's energized by the utility, and just to say hi. Hey, how'd it go? How's the monitoring? Everything good, etc.
I wanted to. Oh, Tyler.
I was just going to ask, do you guys do like an official closeout meeting at the end of the project?
We do, but interestingly, it's actually done by our lead installer or the electrician. We don't, because at that point we find that it's more about the technical details.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think of this from a customer perspective, right? I've never went out there and sold a solar system. I know from a sales perspective how important referrals is, but I am a homeowner. I have solar hot water on my roof from a referral. I never got 3 bids. I have a new roof on my house from a referral. I never got 3 bids. When I moved into my house, I had gravel driveway. I had asphalt poured. That was a referral. I did not get 3 bids. I'm really happy with the way that I've maintained my house. And if I don't have a referral from somebody for a business, I never have called a random business up to work on my house. I've either done it myself or gotten a referral or had friends help me. And that's just me. I'm one perspective. But for me, the referral is like 100%. If I call somebody up and say, who's your tree person? I need to have a tree removed. I'm 100% calling the referral right away. So in my mindset, that is it. If I'm not getting a referral from somebody I know, then I'm either putting it off or scrambling. So I just wanted to share that perspective, because some of you all are homeowners as well. You all make decisions for your homes as well based on different information there. So thinking about how you would even act if you were shopping for a solar system or a capital appliance or windows for your house. You know, how are you going to do business, and how would referrals affect that?
Craig,
Yeah, that's a
whatever.
great point, Craig. Great point. I'm sort of like that too. Some people are, some people aren't. But again, you're increasing the the percentage of you closing that project, because you will get certain people who say, no, that's my guy. That's my solar guy. He's going to do a great job. I have complete confidence. Yeah. So again, you know, that your close rate is going to go up, up, up. Yep.
What I love about this conversation, you guys, is that, I mean, it's just shedding light on the fact that, you know, people love to get quality referrals, but you know, it's actually, there's this pretty big gap between people who are willing to give referrals and people who actually do. And I think, I mean, that basic gap, I'll say a little bit more about that because it really does inform the way that I think about this and how I recommend asking for referrals. And there's actually, I mean, there's some pretty good research out there, which is really interesting. There's this Texas Tech study that really does shed light on the general state of things. And the basic idea is that referrals, you know, they do happen organically, but they're not a given, even if the customer loves the work that you do, right? And these researchers, they found 83% of satisfied customers, they're willing to give a referral, but only 29% actually do, right? It's just this huge gap. And that referral gap, I mean, it refers to the majority of satisfied customers, 54%, according to that Texas Tech study, who are willing to give referrals but rarely do. And like I about at the beginning, I mean, closing that referral gap, it's often the best opportunity that most installers have to drive sustained, cost-effective growth. But it really does beg the question, like, why do so few customers actually refer their friends and family? In my experience, I mean, solar installers, they either don't consistently ask for referrals, or if they do, you know, they ask in a passive way. And it's not fair. It's often typically left up just to the salesperson, you know, to ask for a referral at the end of a project. And it goes like, you know, hey, you know, if you have any friends or family who'd be interested in going solar, like, please send them my way. You know, happy client says, like, you bet, like, that sounds awesome. But more often than not, right, that's where it ends. But what I ask is, you know, what if the salesperson could say without missing a beat, like, well, that's awesome. Like, I'll follow up with an email. And in my experience, I mean, it's really all about the follow up. And my approach to following up, right, what I recommend to my clients can be remembered with the acronym ASK, ask, right? Just ask, right? A, automate, you know, use automations to ask consistently. S, send, you know, you got to send a regular newsletter so that you continue to build trust, stay relevant over time. And then K, I mean, keep going. This is the thing. It's like if you're taking the time to send a regular newsletter, you should really expect more from the content that you create. And so, of course, you can repurpose that content to do all kinds of cool things like rank better on Google. And this is a total aside, but I just can't help myself. I'm on a roll, right? I have to mention that, you know, using this approach that I'm talking about, my largest client, the one I was talking about at the beginning, you know, they more than doubled their conversions from organic search last year. Things like first-time phone calls and self-scheduled appointments. I mean, these conversions from organic search jumped by 115% between 2019 and 2020. And just to be clear, you know, the contractor did not directly pay for any of these calls or appointments. This includes no paid advertising. It's all from organic search, and it's all a direct result of creating quality content for that contractor's audience, right? And so taking a step back and like looking at this approach, ASK, I mean, it's actually not that complicated. And I'm sure that, you know, almost any solar installer can use this approach to see some real gains with referrals and repeat business. And here's why, right? It's like with this approach that I'm talking about, what you're doing is basically just starting and continuing conversations with people who already know you and have some level of trust, right? And that really is the main difference between what I'm talking about and what most marketers do, right? Most marketing is outward looking. You know, you're connecting with new leads who generally don't know that much about you, and that's okay. But to close the deal, I mean, you have to invest a fair amount of time and energy into building trust. And rather than losing trust with your clients and letting that time and energy go to waste, what I'm saying is, you know, build on that trust that you already have to improve those close rates, referrals, and repeat business. And I'll say, I mean, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, you want a little help getting started, you can download the template for the referral email sequence that I recommend for solar installers at voltastrategies.com/downloads. And I'm actually going to pause for a second to open up this chat and drop that in there. So Because the thing is that this
I'll
is
put it in there. Yep.
Cool.
VoltaStrategies.com. What?
slash downloads. Actually, I'm just going to grab it. Craig, you have a reputation when it comes to technology. I don't mean to offend. All right. Yeah, that looks correct. That looks correct. If anyone has an issue with that, let me know. Cool. Close that chat box. But yeah, I mean, so these are the templates that I recommend, and like I said, you won't be able to navigate to that page from my homepage. So if you want that, jump over there now, or maybe after the meeting, Craig will send out that link as well. And I can really go a lot deeper into these steps. I mean, automations, and of course, sending newsletters, got lots of good stuff to say. But a quick time check. We got 2:32. Craig and Mark, before I press on, should I keep going on this thing, or Craig and Mark, do either of you guys have something you want to say?
I think that the automation part is really important. I think that I know our company has, even though our marketing dollars all go toward, online stuff. I don't know anything. I don't know how this stuff works, but we have one marketing person. That's it. But she is so good at what she does. She actually has subcontractors that she's making stuff happen. But there's more automation happening through our CRM regarding referrals, and of course some other things as well, that basically pushes people to our website. That's what you want. You want people to find you. You want to know who's out there looking and get them coming over. These guys are very, very, very good at that. It's amazing. And they can actually hit different levers. And sometimes the year it gets too busy and we're like, oh, wait, pull it back. That's too many opportunities. We're too busy. We're not gonna, because we have a very strict way of like, when that opportunity hits my email, I want everyone to get to them that day, that morning, that hour. And if you can't do that, if you're too busy, that's fine. We need to figure out how to adjust those opportunities. We do a round robin, and I can switch those percentages. Okay, right now it's third and third. Everyone gets a quarter. Oh, this person's busy, but I'm going to take you down to 10%, split up amongst everyone else. But what that does is it makes sure that we do get back to people. So one thing about referrals is when my neighbor asks me for a referral, I want them to call and I want them to make it happen. And if that person gets that quick response, which is just like any opportunity, of course, something's going to happen. So having that automation is really important.
That's good stuff, Mark. And we got Brett Nielsen trying to come on. Welcome, Brett. Yeah, no, automation is so key, right? And a lot of people, I mean, especially if you're in like a management or a sales position, you don't need to go super deep on automation. You don't need to see how all the different gears fit together. But by God, let me try to say a little bit by way of, introducing these things, making them real, and making sure that you understand what the potential of these automations is. And a marketing automation is basically just using software to automate some repetitive marketing task. And so here, I'll break down the automations that were most important to the success of that contractor that I talked about at the beginning. So, here's a good place to start. Like, what is the point of an automation? Like, why use an automation? Well, for one thing, you might want more leads to become estimates. And so if someone makes contact with you but doesn't end up completing an estimate after a certain period of time, you could send them an automated email sequence, just checking in and asking if they're still interested. Also, you might want more estimates to become projects. So if someone gets an estimate, but they don't complete a project after a certain amount of time, you could send, just automatically send them an email sequence, again, checking in and asking if they still want to do a project, right? And anyone who does a project sooner rather than later could get a limited time offer to make it happen. And then also, this is mostly what we're talking about today, is you want more projects to become referrals or repeat business. And anyone who completes a project could get an automated email sequence asking how their project went and inviting them to share both reviews and referrals. And those are the templates. The specific language that I use, the specific templates for that email sequence is what I mentioned before at voltastrategies.com/downloads. But the zooming out a little bit, right? Each of these automations that I'm talking about, they start with a shorter email sequence that builds towards a specific goal, like complete the project or refer a friend, but they don't end there, right? And this is actually really important because after the shorter sequence, the clients should join your newsletter list. And that's what's called a long-term nurturing campaign, right? So that's what they call it in the biz, as a long-term nurturing campaign. And it's honestly where most of the magic happens. So I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But you might have noticed there's a pattern with these automations that I'm describing, right? They all leverage the power of email. And that's by design, right? I mean, the context for this is that over the years, I've tried just about everything to increase referrals for home energy contractors. And at one point, I created these golden tickets like Willy Wonka, and I hand delivered them to clients after projects. I mean, there's no top hat, I'm sorry to say, but the idea was that our clients could use these impressive looking tickets. They could give them to their friends and family, which would, unlock this pretty generous referral offer. And I was sure, I was like, oh, this is going to be a hit, right? The personal touch and everything. But the thing is, I mean, these tickets, they fell flat. And I found that the results just did not justify the time or the expense that I was putting into it. And the same could really be said of all the approaches I tried until I got really serious about email. And this isn't just my personal experience, right? Email, it's enjoying this renaissance in the marketing world. And there are a few reasons for that. I mean, for one, email, it's scalable, right? On one level, getting referrals, it's just straight up a numbers game. You have to ask enough people to see results. And so I recommend asking almost all of your clients at one point or another. And that's why scalability is so key. If it takes a lot of time or it costs a lot of money to ask for referrals, I mean, your referral program is just going to fall flat. But email, this is the thing, is like it's maybe the most scalable approach. And when you create the right automations, like what I'm talking about, you can ask for referrals with literally just the click of a button. And that's why the ROI is so damn good, right? On average, when you zoom out and you look at all these different industries, the average is, $35 earned for every $1 spent. That's a statistic from the 2020 survey by the Data and Marketing Association, but pretty reliable number. So I mean, great return on investment, but email also, I mean, it can be personal, right? And don't get me wrong, it's like email marketing can be super gross. Like get your hot solar leads. I'm sure you've seen this. But email marketing, I mean, it can be done in an authentic way that, like I said, builds on the trust that you already have with these clients. I mean, a couple of quick examples. You can customize, who sends it. It can come from the salesperson that the client already trusts, or it could come from the owner of the company for a little extra authority. And of course, you can customize who gets it, right? You want to segment your list so that the right message is getting to the right client. And for example, send one message to clients who completed project and another one to people who got estimates but not projects. And this segmentation, I mean, just make sure that your message hits the mark. And Craig and Mark, you guys, like I said, I'm holding the mic here for a little bit, and I know it's my show, but I could go deeper into that referral email sequence and just like describe what that looks like, or press on and we can talk about sending newsletters. What do you guys think?
Yeah, actually having you do that is good. I wanted to mention something. It's 2:40. One of the other things is, as you go forward in time with your company, there's lots of we've all had hundreds and hundreds of customers. And I think it's important. We found it's important to actually dig some of that stuff out. So one of the things we'll do is here, I don't know if I can let's see if I can paste this into the chat. I can't do that. Anything. One of the things that we'll do when it's a little slower, let's say January, February, typically, is we'll get the sales team together and we'll have what we call a referral party. What we'll do is we'll get everybody together on Zoom, chat, whatever. So we're looking at each other. We're muted, but the sales director he's got this spreadsheet with everyone's names. There's a leaderboard. You get certain points for voicemail. Let's see, let me get the points up here. I have them somewhere. Yeah, so voicemails, you get a point. Conversations, you get 5 points. But if you actually get a referral with a name and a phone number, you get 25 points. So at the end of that hour, whoever wins gets $50. Now, it's not about the $50, but it's amazing the people that you're calling. So what we'll do is he'll send a link out to Mark's opportunities for the last 2 years. And there'll be a list of, besides the ones that I've won and that I know that I've lost, people that, who knows, maybe they went away, maybe we never heard from them again. I have a whole list, and we'll just start calling and see what comes up. That's we've been very successful with that. We've only done it for the last 2 years, but it's a great way to find out what happened to these people 2 years ago. Where'd they go? Or what's even better, I feel, is if you have salespeople who've come and gone, well, What about, John's been gone for a year. He was here for 2 years or 3 years. Let's have our new salesperson call that person's opportunities, because the point, there's still value in the opportunity had value to begin with. And yes, maybe it loses some over time, but it still has value. And we've proven that with the fact that we've gotten referrals from these customers. We've gotten projects from this this activity. Yeah, sometimes, we don't get 100% participation. Like I said, we got 12 people selling now. Sometimes we'll get 10 people. Sometimes we'll get 8. Sometimes we do get all 12. And actually, it's a lot of fun. So I just want to throw that in there.
What I like about, go ahead, Craig.
Oh, no, I was going to say, like, some of those things, like, I feel like when I think about this, what Mark was just saying and some of the stuff we were touching on earlier is a little bit like more short term. It's like, who's the roof or who's this, a referral. But what you were just talking about, Bill, is this long-term nurturing campaign, which I will say that as the marketing person at OC, it's my job to get the word out there. I've noticed that works, but I also notice how annoying it can feel. So I do want to hear more about that, because I'm the type of person that's like, oh my God, should I send another blast to everybody about this? It's so annoying. But then I watch the metrics on the back end and I'm like, yep, Tyler finally registered for the conference. It was only the 17th email. But no, literally I'm watching when you all sign up or when you all register, when you click on emails, when you open stuff up. And I'm also the recipient of a ton of emails that are reminding me to register to do this thing. But if I don't get 45 reminders, sometimes I honestly don't register for something that I want to register for. And so, we go through this now. You guys are going to start seeing this. I'm going to go through a long-term nurturing campaign. OSEA is leading up to our November conference, right? And it's going to be this constant messaging. So I think that this is like an important part, because there's that immediate thing of like, who's your roofing person? Who remodeled your kitchen? Oh, Neil Kelly remodeled my kitchen. Okay, I'm calling them right now. Or this long-term thing to like instill branding or to instill trust and to build trust in that situation. So, okay, I'll shut up for now, but yeah.
That's great. That's great. I love it. And I mean, to that point, Craig, what I'll say is, I would say it's maybe my number one rule, if not number one, top 5 for sure, which is like, don't annoy your audience, right? I mean, they put a huge amount of trust in you. And as you start doing that, like, people are going to unsubscribe, and that's fine. That's the beautiful thing about email. If they're like, God, this is getting on my nerves, the 45th from mine, I'm out of here. That's it. I'm out of here. And I mean, and that happens. That's fine. That's a natural process. Some number of people unsubscribe. But, in general, I say, be really intentional about the asks and the timing. I'll speak to both of these things. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the newsletter. And I feel like, most installers that I talk to, they have this sense that, geez, I should really be sending a newsletter, but just can't seem to find the time to do it. And so, I mean, if there's nothing else today, I mean, I'm just here to say, just do it. Just send the newsletter, right? And sending a regular newsletter, it's one of the most cost-effective things you can do to build an audience of people that know and trust you, right? And that's literally all you need to boost referrals and repeat business, is this audience of people. And of course, there are better and there are worse ways to do a newsletter. So, I'll hit on some of the highlights about that. But I like to say a few words about mindset that's important for newsletters in particular, and marketing in general, right? What's the mindset that you should have? Well, your mindset matters a lot. And if you're only thinking about money, your customers, they are straight up going to feel that right away. And, spoiler, it's not going to feel good, right, to them. That's what spam feels like to people. But on the other hand, I mean, good marketing is pretty much invisible, right? Maybe you notice an emotional connection. It feels genuinely helpful, right? That's what we're talking about today. And I think that good marketing, it comes from working towards this larger mission and serving a community of people in an open-handed way, right? You want to help them find outcomes that support that mission. And it goes without saying, I mean, of course, you've got to make money, but instead of making that your top priority, focus on your mission and your audience, and I promise you will go farther that way. And so what you want to do, carrying that thinking to a newsletter, the goal is to serve your audience, right? Address their questions and concerns as they relate to your work. And over time, I mean, you'll build this audience of people who trust you and think of you first when they think of solar, right? And this is a really important point. I mean, every newsletter should reference your referral offer at the bottom. And that positions you to get the call or earn the referral when the time comes. Again, you're not being pushy. You're providing valuable content and you're saying, by the way, like I care about this. And if you know anyone who could benefit, please put us in touch. But this is the thing, man. I know we're here today to talk about referrals, but like it's not just about referrals, right? Like your newsletter should go out to all of the people who made contact with you. So that includes people who got estimates, but not projects. And remember, in that case study I was talking about, like the average close rate for that contractor jumped by 5 percentage points across the entire damn company, pardon my French. But we did that in part by staying in touch with people who are considering a project, but they hadn't committed yet, right? And here's what that looks like, So imagine you're a homeowner and you get estimates from 3 different solar companies. Let's say you're like most people and you spend more than a year, considering solar before you make a decision. About a third of people spend more than 2 years making a decision, right? These are not my statistics. These are numbers from Cadmus Group, in some market research they did for Energy Trusts of Oregon. But throughout that year, one of these companies follows up with you, not to close the deal, but to keep you up to date about changing incentives and strategies to save energy. And maybe even look forward to reading those newsletters. It just almost begs the question, like, which company would earn your trust and probably get your business? I mean, I think it's pretty clear, and the results from my clients are pretty compelling. And one specific example is, I sent an email for a solar installer in Southern Oregon just to let his clients know that, Energy Trust incentives were about to step down. And that one email, it resulted in $92,000 in revenue, right? 2 clients followed up to say, like, hell yeah, let's do that before it gets more expensive. And bear in mind, I'm not claiming credit for that $92,000. What I'm saying is this is just a catalyst for people who are, whatever, they're interested in the work that you do, but it's just a gentle reminder, just checking in. Here's something you care about. That's what we're doing here. And I've got some other stuff I can talk about, how often to send a newsletter and what do you write about and all that. But I'll pause and see if Mark wants to chip anything in.
It's funny. I don't even know if we send one out. That's a really good question. I don't even know. We may not, because I think that I remember 2 years ago there was some talk about it, and our marketing person, she's incredibly good at what she does. She's been doing this for a very long time, and her point is that we have so much we get so much traffic from the web already. We get so many opportunities and referrals already. She's like, it's almost not worth our time. So I don't think we're doing that. That doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't. I think Bill has a very good point, especially if you're starting out or you're going into a new territory. I know we did do it for about 6 months when A&R opened the Oregon office back in 2016. They did do it for a while, and then things built up and we stopped it. But our website has so much information on it. I think, people are often referring to oh yeah, I got that from your website. I got that there, So I think that we're doing less of that. And again, partly because everyone gets, inundated with this stuff. And also partly it just didn't see it. There was no return on investment for us to do that on a regular basis.
That's fair, Mark. And I honestly felt that same way for years, right? And it's only been in these last couple of years where I was like, I heard it again and again. I went to enough of these conferences and talked to enough marketing people where they're like, oh yeah, by the way, if you're not sending a newsletter, you should definitely do that. And I'm like, I heard it enough times where I'm like, I'm just gonna do this. And honestly, it's kind of revolution. I mean, of course, here I am talking about it today, but it's just to say, it really is about building this audience of people, and there's no better way to do that than email if it's done right. People do get a lot of emails, but if you can cut through that, I've got some recommendations for how to do it. If you can cut through, I mean, the results are real, and I'm talking about the gains in efficiency in terms of, you can actually, as you start to do this and you start to see the referrals and the repeat business rise up, you can spend less on some of these other more expensive marketing channels. And that's the gain in efficiency. That's the whole reason to do this, is that from the bottom line of a business, it just pencils. It's like the best, most cost-effective thing you can do. But I'll whatever. I should almost talk to you after this, Mark, but I'll just mention it because it can benefit other people too. But, my company does have a referral program. And if you refer Jen, I mean, of course I care about this. I would pay you $500 for a referral that results in a project, but I'm not here to talk about my business, but you tuck that in your back pocket, Mark.
Well.
Yeah. So here we are, Craig, I know it's 2:51. I do have some good stuff I could share about newsletters. I know we also do want to talk a little bit about what do you even do with these referrals after you get them. And then of course I want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. But where do you want to go with this, Craig?
Yeah, however you want to flow. Do folks have a hard stop at 3 o'clock, or can folks go a little bit over? It's really up to the crew here. And so Newt has a question though, actually, over Facebook presence. Do you say the newsletter would be a separate PDF type newsletter, or in the body of the newsletter? Either way, lift the burden of writing multiple small articles in each time. Yeah, Newt, actually, if you're going to do a newsletter, you really want to try and use like a CRM. Is that correct, Bill? Like something like MailChimp or Constant Contact, or something that can help you with your newsletter signups and tracking, who's reading what, and keeping that template there, and really continuing on in that way. So I don't necessarily know, Newt, that you would type something into a Word doc and make it a PDF and mail it out to people, because it doesn't really allow you a lot of the metrics and stuff like that. I can certainly help you, Newt, and I'm sure that Bill can as well, get set up with one of these things, and they're pretty easy to use for sure. But yeah, when Bill's mentioning a newsletter, I'm pretty sure he's referencing either using your CRM system or using something through your however your website is hosted, or using like MailChimp or Constant Contact.
Let me jump in there real quick, because it's kind of weird. I mean, you would think that, these CRMs, especially something as robust as Salesforce, you'd be like, they must have a pretty good email marketing system built in. In my experience, that is just not the case. And I don't know why that is. But what I typically recommend, MailChimp is really like a standalone, at least currently, it's like a standalone marketing, email marketing platform. And so that's really, if you do want to get serious about a newsletter, like that is what you should use. And it's not breaking the bank. My favorite is ConvertKit, and I can say a little bit more about that. But ConvertKit is awesome. It allows for a huge amount of segmentation and customization. And like what I'll say very briefly, because it's so badass, but what they do that I don't see MailChimp doing or anybody else in quite the same way is you can create these flows where, like, if somebody, for example, let's say at the end of they send you final payment for a project, and you automatically send an email that's like, hey, we got your payment. Like, how did it go? How'd your project go? And if they click a button that says like, it was terrible, I wish I never worked with you, then, with ConvertKit, you can just just stops it right there. So you can follow up individually and like hear more and like get in front of a bad review. But of course, if they had a good experience, like couldn't have gone better, then they move forward and you have a chance to ask for reviews, ask for referrals. But that kind of like channeling people where you want them to go is so critical for this stuff to be personalized and to really hit the mark. So I like ConvertKit, and what you do is you connect up ConvertKit with your CRM if you have that, if you're using Salesforce or Zoho or something else. I use what I've used in the past is a tool called Zapier to connect CRMs, and then ConvertKit or MailChimp or whatever you use, but you can do it in a really seamless way.
I thought I'd comment on Newt sent something in the chat, and he's saying about newsletters versus Facebook. I do know that, yeah, our marketing person, Facebook's a big part of what we use for marketing. And the only reason I didn't bring it up earlier is because I don't use it personally. I don't do any social media personally. So unfortunately, I don't know a lot about this stuff. I just know it's important, which sounds ridiculous, but most of you folks are, people of a different generation, I do understand it's a really big deal. And for our company, it is a really big deal. So we've got articles on there, we're posting links, reviews, photographs of various projects. So yeah, it's a big deal, Newt, I would say. And it's less expensive to do it there as well, a lot less expensive. And and you could do it. If I knew how to use it, I could probably do it too, because it's sort of, oh, this is what I'm thinking right now.
And I want to address, Newt, there's a question about, just saying like, hey, there's this burden of writing multiple small articles each time. And I want to speak to that briefly, because it's a common conception that if you're like, hey, Bill, I hear you waving the flag for newsletters, like, that's cool. I don't have no time to write multiple small articles. And the thing is that you don't actually have to write articles to have a successful newsletter. Like if you want to have your website rank better and you want to play the SEO game, like creating custom content is mandatory. But if you say like SEO, like that's cool. I mean, I'm not doing that. But if you just want to build an audience of people that know and trust you to see referrals and repeat business increase, you can actually be think about it. You can be a curator. You don't have to be a creator, but you can be a curator of content. And the thing is, there's just a huge amount of valuable content out there already, right? I mean, you can think of any number of different sources, NREL, U.S. Department of Energy, I mean, whatever. There's even Aurora is doing really good stuff, but you can just like pull from the content that's already out there and share that with your audience and say, hey, I found this thing and it looks awesome. And it doesn't have to be black or white. Maybe you sprinkle in some of this curated content with content that you're creating and you go back and forth, but you can do this in a way that makes it really scalable and not burdensome at all. Yeah. So you guys, we can riff more, but I know we are getting a little late here, and I do want to speak to that third area of like, what do you even do with a referral after you get it?
I want to know that too. So my ears are peeled right now. What do you do with the referral? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. I mean, there are different ways to come at it, but you probably will not be too shocked to hear, given all the other things I've talked about, that I'm all about, scalability with a personal touch. And so what I recommend is, do your best to get the email address for the person who gave the referral. And with that, you can set up some simple automations to thank the referrer, like right away, send them a thank you email, and then pay for their referral if a project results. And so, when I started working with that contractor I mentioned at the beginning, I asked like, okay, so what's your process for paying referrals? And the office manager, she said, sometimes I pay referrals and sometimes I don't. And she wasn't consistently, the contractor, they just weren't consistently asking for the contact information for the person who gave the referral. And so if she didn't have the information, she wouldn't pay it. And I was just kind of like, wait, what? So needless to say, that was a big opportunity for improvement. But what we started to do is, ask for the email address of the person who gave the referral. And you can do that on your website. Someone clicks, hey, I heard about you through a referral. Boom, little box opens up that says, great, like what's their name? Do you have an email? You don't need to collect it right away. You can always follow up later, but if they have it at hand, like that's awesome. And with that email address, I mean, you can create an automation where, when you create the lead for the client in your CRM, you automatically send an email to the person who gave the referral. And an example is like, and you can be customized with like the names of the people. Like, so in the title of the email, like Jill, thank you so much for referring Joe Biden, or whatever. And then like the email is like, thank you so much for putting us in touch, right? If Joe completes a project, we'll send you a $500 bonus. And if you have questions, just reply here. But that immediate like recognition of the person who gave the referral, I think, is so important. And email allows you to do that automatically. And you don't want to automate the entire process. I want to be clear about that. What I mean is, you don't want to automatically pay the referrals, right? So you want someone on your team to double check everything before you actually send out referral bonuses. But the basic idea is that you want to have a tag or some way of clearly indicating, how a client heard about you within your CRM. And then your office manager should double check that at the end of the project. And if they see that the person was referred, they should send another email to the person who gave the referral with a PayPal payment. I mean, that's it. It could be so simple as that. Just like use PayPal to pay the referral bonus via the same email that you collected at the beginning. And what I found is, this is by far the most streamlined way to track and pay referrals. Aside from using the service like Get the Referral, which if you haven't looked into it, they do more than just referrals, but it is a fairly expensive service. So you could sidestep all of that with some of these automations that I'm talking about. But Mark, what's your take on this?
That's exactly right. Having a good CRM to make sure that you collect the information, you keep it, and then on the back end, once it's installed, done over, there's a prompt for accounting to say, oh, got to pay this referral. So once it's in there, I don't even think about it. I just know it got paid. And the few times that I've checked months and months later, I'm like, oh, great, that guy got paid. That's terrific. And no one has ever come back to me and said, hey, where's my money? That's because we have this really good system set up to make sure it happens. And as Bill says, yeah, PayPal. Sometimes if it's we can do a direct deposit. It depends on how people want it. There's lots of options out there, but getting it done is really important.
Hey, Mark, what percentage of your guys' business comes from referrals? Do you know?
Boy, that's a really good question. what percentage? I think it's around 18 to 20.
Wow, that's
I
substantial.
think.
What
Yeah, it
about
is.
you, Tyler? I'm actually curious during this whole conversation because I feel like Neil Kelly is probably, if they don't have a referral business, that it seems like such a niche market that I'll be honest, I can't afford, in my mind, I can't afford a Neil Kelly remodel. That's just the way I would think about it. But if I was in that pool of people that could, and my friend was like, oh yeah, Neil Kelly redid my kitchen. If I could afford it, I'd be calling a company like Neil Kelly just because of that type of, but I also see that Neil Kelly does a lot of outward marketing. You have a really good marketing department. I work with your marketing department. I see what they come up with. So I'm curious how Neil Kelly, I mean, do you guys have a referral program?
We do, yeah. We get a ton of work from, 74 years we've been in business, right? And our client list is extensive. We get a lot of clients from our remodeling side for sure. And we are good with email blasts and all that stuff. We don't get as much referral work directly from our solar clients as I'd like, though. That's something we have to improve on. So I don't know for sure. I bet this year so far it's between 5 and 10% of our signed contracts are referrals. I want that to be closer to Mark's 20%, quite frankly.
Yep. It's great business.
It is.
I had another point and then I lost it. Bill, I've got to get going though. Appreciate the time being part of this.
I am curious. And so, Mark, if you have to go, that's great. We appreciate your leadership. But do others want to chime in? Garrett, as Sean, you've worked for multiple different solar companies. You've been in the business for a while. But where do referrals kind of sit in the business plan? Because I was the one that called Bill and was like, Bill, let's put a session like this together. I think it's important. I noticed my own self using referrals, and I really want to help OSEA members do more business. From the stuff that Mark is saying, like from what Tyler's telling me, if he can get to where Mark's numbers are, that increases Neil Kelly's bottom line, which is really helpful for everybody, right? And so, yeah, I'm just curious where referrals sit in your sales process.
Yeah, I think it has to be throughout the sales process. We have a couple touch appointment process over at Pure Light Power. And we're talking about the referral in the first meeting, coming back with a proposal, talking about the referral process there, right? And then after the installation, reminding them as well. So it's a big part of our business, word of mouth. We find when you're installing in one city or another, neighbors tend to, it's a clustering effect. So other folks go. So I would say really not only getting the information, but setting up the appointment right away while it's hot on their minds. So getting, teaching, we've had a conversation about teaching our customers how to give us referrals. So it's not necessarily just giving us a whole bunch of names and numbers, but it is talking to those customers about what they went through and their process with solar. And then getting that direct contact information and letting them, we'll be reaching out to set up an appointment. Because I feel like if it doesn't exist on the calendar, it really doesn't exist at all. And for some of these longer term email change, that might work if you're at least getting contact, and then you can drip message them and stay in contact. But for us, it's as folks' attention are on the conversation, if they're thinking about solar, then is the time to actually get together with that customer, talk to them. Like if you're thinking about a kitchen remodel this week, that's when you want to talk about the kitchen remodel and get someone out there, or at least schedule that week, versus waiting 3 months down the road and your brain is onto something else.
Yep, that's true. Good. Okay, thank you all. I've got another meeting. Have a good day.
So I guess now we should probably just wrap up for the few folks that are still with us. If you have any questions for Bill, I've already emailed Bill about a few other topics that I think could be helpful in the future, potentially doing a session for 30 minutes that's just based on long-term nurturing campaigns and stuff like that. But yeah, we probably should, start to wrap up. So if there are final questions, or Bill, if you had some final thoughts, then let's go through that.
Well, I'll just close. I mean, I've pretty much had my opportunity to say everything I want to say, but Just to put a bow on it, what I like about this approach that I'm talking about is that it's very human. I try to come at my work and like the things I do from just like certain core values of like decency and just being a good person. But what I'm talking about is, with this approach of like keeping the interests of your audience right at the forefront, like you're serving them. And like ideally, if you're doing this, like you're not annoying them, but it's just this beautiful synergy of like creating a tribe of people around the value of solar or saving energy or climate change or however you want to talk about it. But building this tribe of people that then supports itself. It's such a beautiful thing. And so I'll just close with that image, and that's really what it's all about. And of course, the business benefits too. But hey, come on now.
All right, any final thoughts? Oh, thanks, Bill. Craig, good to do an overview like this every now and again. Bravo. PS, I think 30% of our work is by referrals, but we're small, timer, and diversified. That's great, Newt. That's great to know that you have a referral program. A lot of times I'm thinking about a lot of our smaller contractors. Bill, do you remember when we were first designing this? I was like, we need to reach out. And I used your name, Newt. I said to Bill, I was like, there are companies out there like Solar Assist that I want to make sure understand these things. So that's why it was important for me to get an idea of who who has referrals and who doesn't. So yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, and Craig, hopefully after this, you could send a link to that downloads page. But also, I'd love to, if you could include my email, just so if people have questions or they want to talk more, I'm clearly pretty passionate about it and happy to help however I can.
Yeah, I'll send out an email with some of Bill's resources along with a recording of today's session so folks can review it and stuff like that.
This has been super informative and interesting. Thank you all. I launched and grew the Portland Northwest office of a national consulting company, and our initial contracts after we won the first one were all word of mouth. Puget Area utilities talked to each other. They had meetings. We tried to get them in the same room together sometimes, but it literally was how we were able to establish the office out here and grow it. And so this all makes perfect sense. So good stuff.
Well, thanks everyone for being here. Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for the support. Sean, it's always good to see you. I really appreciate seeing your face and you showing up. So
thanks for all you're doing for the solar industry for the state. I think you guys play a significant role. And yeah, I couldn't imagine a solar industry without you guys, shining the light on these topics and stuff. So, and thanks, Bill, for sharing your wisdom with us. It's a pleasure to be working with you and looking forward to working with you in the future. So.
Both Bernard and Brian, I'm going to follow up with you guys both just with a little bit more information about what OSEA does and how we're involved and stuff. And so most of the rest of the folks here I know and I've been in contact with. So yeah, thanks for participating. Thank you again, Bill. And signing off for now, huh?
God bless you guys.
All right.